Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Tuesday, March 19th, 2019. Hello out there, folks. It's been a long one today. Let's get right into it here at the grandsolarminimum.com, where we list every article that we cover in tonight's show. We also have the video embedded, so you can play it along and go through the menu as if we were reading the show back to you. But anyway, let's start off with some space weather news. Checking out our solar wind speeds, sitting at a 401.4 kilometers per second and a density of about 6.7, so not much change from earlier this morning. And take a look at that alignment. And we've had KP of 1 over the last 24 to 48 hours, so wouldn't be surprised to see a possibility, especially with some geomagnetic unrest coming our way. And right on schedule, here we see the KP indices now at a 3, and that's a 24-hour max as well. Very weak activity for any kind of solar activity, and we're talking about sunspot number 2735. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this bad boy. Not very big. Sunspot number 13 grew a little bit as it turned Earth-facing, but as you see, it's losing some of its lackluster now as we speak. So we will remain at 53 days without a sunspot. And let's take a look at the SDO in motion. And we'll get a bit zoomed in a little bit on that sunspot AR27. There we go, right there. Again, nothing to worry about as far as any solar flares. Nothing that's saying we could get one as a possibility. We saw a C-class flare not too long ago as well. So watching a couple regions here as Earth-facing turning away, a little bit of activity starts to flare up here. Could we be witnessing the birth of something else? Anyway, the solar wind will be arriving as well later today, as we have barely increased whatsoever from previous solar wind speeds earlier today. But it is on the incline, and looking over here in the further eastern part of the limb of the sun, we do not see any indications that we will be dealing with any kind of new sunspots. Even looking at this right now, still questionable, and we will just have to watch these locations that are Earth-facing right now at the current time. KP indices are picking up, so it is a possibility that we could see a minor G1 geomagnetic activity type storm for tomorrow. But again, that's a low chance. We're slowly climbing up to 3 KP right now. We'll have to monitor throughout the evening and into the morning to see if a storm actually does happen. And again, G1, we talked about these yesterday or the other day on Space Weather, how we typically see more geomagnetic activity in the month of March. It's very typical. There's been studies done on it, and of course in September and October near the equinoxes. So good correlation. We covered it yesterday in our solar update. Let's get to some GSM world news. Now, we're doing things a little different tonight. So we have broke this show up into 3 segments. This is the beginning of the first segment of the show tonight, GSM World News. We will play a brief 15-second advertisement of our channel, and then we will move into the next section. So don't be alarmed when you see Mari talking about the website and where to like us. It is just part of the new format. As of tonight, we are breaking up the live shows. We'll post them live as they stream, but at the end of the night, we'll start editing the videos to where they'll be into 3 to 4 different parts. That way you can listen to it on your time. Instead of an hour at a time, we're going to try to keep them between 15 and 25 minutes at a time. All right, getting on with the stories here. Farm Belt floods dealt another blow to the ag situation right now. And according to this article here, severe flooding across the Farm Belt continued this weekend, swamping farms and shutting down roads, railways, grain elevators, and processing sites. Emergencies have been declared in several Midwestern states. Total damage has been yet tallied, but it's possible Congress could eventually step in, especially as lawmakers are already working on final disaster relief packages to address damage from the 2018 hurricanes and wildfires. Now, this also includes the flooding that we experienced last year in the spring. Remember, last March wasn't so kind to us. We had quite a bit of nor'easters to wrap up the year, and just heavy rain across the south. We've flooded in the Midwest. We reported on the crop situation for a few weeks into April, into the first week of May, until we started seeing people getting into their fields finally by mid-May and early June, which is really cutting it close, guys. But again, pointing out an article about farming, the concerns that we have with this weather. With a new food safety leader finally in place, the Agriculture Department is looking to advance several regulatory changes this year, including new salmonella standards and pork processing inspections. So on top of the fact that they're going to see delayed crops, they're going to see not a healthy yield, and I mean by size, now they're going to have stricter regulations on the standards on how the food gets sold. So we're facing two challenges. The challenge of keeping up with supply and demand, the quantity, the quality, and now regulations. It just makes me wonder how much are going to make the cut in some of these puny, because we did cover this a few days ago where customers are now requesting the odd-shaped, smaller fruits and vegetables because the price is closer to what they remember paying for produce than what they're looking at today. U.S.-Brazil trade will be on the agenda Tuesday when Donald Trump and Jair Bolsonaro meet at the White House. Influential Republican senators want Trump to press the new Brazilian leader on expanding market for access for U.S. wheat. But the biggest thing is the aid that is so desperately needed. And what I find very, very alarming and troubling is that we need billions of dollars to hit target goals to get things back to normal from last year's damage. And this year so far, we're talking about catastrophic flooding. Maury did an excellent piece. But look at this, guys. These are the highways here in the fields. Roads are being cut off. Here's another article that kind of highlights some of the dollar totals so far and the early going here. Look at this. NEMA said the current public impact of flooding in Nebraska is around $205 million, and the private impact is over $59 million. So $205 million, that's over almost $300 million. And this is the early going here as far as assessing this. There are also 3 known fatalities according to the agency, one being the farmer who was killed trying to help someone, another from someone who was carried away as they drove into high water, an 80-year-old woman who couldn't be rescued, and another person is missing from the Spencer Dam. The agency said there has also been a $400 million impact to livestock. So we're almost at $1 billion just in one state. $1 billion. And this is just the beginning of their assessments. FEMA individual assistance will be available to residents of Nebraska for the second time in state history. The first was in 2011. A total of 65 counties of the 74 cities have issued emergency declarations. The state will also submit an expedited request for federal disaster declaration from President Donald Trump. We'll leave the link in our article here at thegrandsolarminimum.com. So $1 billion, and the first bona fide, massive storm, this bomb cyclone, the way it hit, the snow, the rain, the flooding, everything, the damage. You also think back, and this is another thing I want to look up too. We haven't did a follow-up on this. That tornado that was on the ground for 1 hour and 16 minutes. Haven't heard about that, have you? It's kind of funny how when it happened, it was mentioned in the news once, and then several YouTube channels, I'm sure, several Reddit topics were probably talking about it. But now it's gone. No one's talking about it. How much damage did that tornado do? That's a long time being on the ground. 78 miles it traveled. 55 miles per hour were some of the speeds that it reached while traveling those 78 miles. 1 hour and 16 minutes on the ground. So, we haven't even factored up the damage that's been done from that storm still. I haven't heard. I'd like to know if anybody has an idea what that would be, that number. That would be great to know as well. I'm sure we'll do the research. But we're early going, guys, and we haven't seen but maybe 2 big storms, and we're probably totaling close to 2 billion, if not more, in damage. And the damage across the south might be a little more widespread just because of how far this tornado went. But again, why is this happening? This rapid change in weather. And I can tell you, it was 63 degrees here in upstate New York on Friday, and some rain showers moved in. And by the afternoon, evening, we were dropping into the 40s. So what felt like a great spring day, the next morning you woke up and I was driving to work in snow flurries and high winds and temperatures barely above 32 degrees. And that's nothing compared to what's happening in places like Nebraska, the bomb cyclone, the bizarre hour and 16-minute tornado. This is all indications of unstable situations in our atmosphere. Look, guys, I can tell you this. This ain't climate change. This is weather. Because if this was climate change, then we wouldn't continue to see tornadoes reoccurring in the spring, severe-wise. And we wouldn't continue to see snow during the winter months. If this was climate change, it would be sunny and hot right now and snowing in July. That's climate change. That's when the climate changes. We're seeing an increase in severe weather because it's cyclical. There's so many cycles right now, too, that are lining up with this, that this is what's happening. It's nature. It's Mother Nature. The sun drives the climate. That's what we're saying here, guys. Pretty much. Death toll in Mozambique. Mari covered this in a part of the video today. I'm just going to briefly touch base. The president of Mozambique said Monday, March 18, 2019, that the number of people killed by tropical cyclone Idai could exceed 1,000. It made landfall around 23:30 UTC on March 14th, close to the city of, I think it's Beria, population over 500,000, with speeds to 104 miles per hour, central pressure of 960. Guys, check out our solar update from this morning. Mari does a report on the damage and what's happening in this region, but I wanted to bring it up tonight just in case if some of you haven't seen the update from this morning, or earlier this afternoon, I should say. We'll leave a link also on our website. Severe tropical cyclone Trevor hits Queensland. 11.8 inches of rain. 124 mile an hour gusts have been reported. Australia getting hit again. Heavy rain. Historic rain. Says here it made landfall at 6:55 UTC on March 19th. Category 3 was the strength. Winds were in excess of 124 miles per hour, were reported at far north Queensland, and more than almost 12 inches of rain overnight. So less than 24 hours, we get 12 inches of rain. According to local media reports, entire communities were put into lockdown at 1300 local time, March 18, with emergency sirens sounded to alert residents to seek shelter until it was safe to come out. A little freaky there. While Trevor started weakening after making landfall, meteorologists are urging residents to take caution as strong winds, gusts, and heavy rains are possible and expected to continue in its passage over the land. Trevor is expected to exit into the Gulf of Carpentera on March 20th and then quickly re-intensify in the Gulf later this week, possibly reaching a Category 4 strength. Cyclones in the Gulf are notoriously erratic, and so the forecast track and intensity may change a lot between now and then, says Adam Morgan, BOM senior meteorologist. And take a look at this bad boy in motion. Wow. I can just tell by the cloud signatures and the definition of the spirals of this storm right now. You wait till it gets back over the Gulf. Intensifying indeed. Massive storm here, folks. Thanks to the watchers for putting the information together for us and reporting on this. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't hear about this storm today on the news. And I watch the news every day. Deadly earthquake here in Lubbock, Indonesia, shallow earthquake registered by the USGS as a M5.5 hit Mount Rinjani in Indonesia 7:07 UTC on March 17, 2019, triggering deadly landslides at the Tuakilip waterfall in the Bayan district. The quake hit about of a depth of 14.7. They're reporting it as a 5.8 in some spots. According to the statement released by the Meteorology, Climatology, and Geophysics Agency, the quake caused a large landslide and killing several people, trapping about 40. There were about 40 tourists affected by the landslide. Most of the victims were Malaysians and domestic tourists. The Regional Disaster Migration Agency and the Northern Lombok Health Agency dispatched 4 ambulances to the scene, as well as medical and rescue personnel to aid and relocate victims. 2 people were killed, 44 injured, 32 homes collapsed, and 499 homes were damaged. So we can see the pictures, the aftermath of what had happened here in Lombok. Not a stranger to this kind of events. In fact, this region was one of severely badly damaged areas after a series of earthquakes hit the island in July and August of 2018, killing more than 500 people and leaving around 1,500 injured. So unfortunate that we were talking about this region once again before a year anniversary of some intense seismic activity that took the lives of over 500 people just this past summer. And we'll be right back, guys. Stay tuned.
Here on GSM, we understand not everyone has a full hour to devote to listening to our show. With our new channel format, we are breaking the show up into 3 segments: world news, climate news, and weather. All segments will post separately on the channel right after the show.
All right, we're back. And tonight's climate news section of the show, we want to talk about some important things that have to do with the weather, of course, but coal's decline could mean more power shortages. Just more proof of, just basically this article is a collection of what we've been saying as well. But as the need for electricity to power for the nation's digital economy grows, coal is no longer playing a primary role. And that's problematic because it undergrids the electric grid and is the most reliable source of energy. Without coal plants that supply base load power on demand, large parts of the United States, from the mountain states to the mid-Atlantic and the southeast, will become more vulnerable to power shortages and increases in electricity cost. Okay, so AOC and all your friends, hopefully get a chance to watch this part. What this article is telling us is that the mountain states to the mid-Atlantic and to the southeast will become more vulnerable to power shortages and increases to electricity costs. What does that mean? What's scary about this is the mountain states has seen some very cold weather all winter long. I can't imagine a power outage for anything more than 2 or 3 days during these negative 20-degree highs. The southeast has seen some stormy weather, flooding already. I can't imagine being stuck on top of the fact that you're flooding down there, power going out because of blackouts before the storm even hits. And not to mention that during the summertime, how hot does it get down there in the southeast? The humidity is killer. And if you're having rolling blackouts, a lot of people with breathing issues, that's going to make it even more difficult. If you've ever lived anywhere that's in the south, the deep south, with that humidity, wow. Let's read on here. With the loss of more than 600 coal units in less than 10 years, coal's share of the nation's electricity generating capacity has dropped from almost half in 2017 to 30% today, and is expected to fall even further. Now, the only reason why it's expected to fall even further is because a lot of these people believe that the United States will pass this new Green Deal. But I think what we need to do is heed the warnings from these articles that talk about shortages and blackouts in areas that can't afford to have these blackouts. Your mountain states in the wintertime, for sure. The mid-Atlantic during the winter and the summer, it gets hot. And the southeast, very, very hot and humid in the summer and the spring. Plus, we saw a little bit more weather action this year as well. It got a little cooler down there. And let's be honest, folks. Not a lot of people install furnaces in their homes in the far south, in the deep south anyway. And on top of that, those people that are dealing with blackouts are going to pay more money for electricity. And that's before we even start putting this new Green Deal into action. Rapid decline in the number of coal plants and commensurate growth in the natural gas and wind and solar power will result in a loss of fuel diversity. Now, at least they mentioned natural gas, but that's wishful thinking because AOC and the rest don't want natural gas either. They just want wind and solar. And we've already talked about the costs that will occur if we go to wind and solar. Guys, I could read on. I'll let you guys take a look at this, but the bottom line is we are pointing out, and this is just an opinion. This guy's, it doesn't sound like he's a global cooling guy or a global warming guy. He's just, stating a very scary fact here that if we're going to consider getting rid of coal, then we should consider these articles that are being written that are a matter of fact, that are displaying the stats, talking about power outages and blackouts. Because the extreme weather that happens in these regions, they know that they're not going to have enough solar and wind to keep people power as far as lights on, your heat on. Climate news is fun tonight, guys. All right. So our friend at the climatedepot.com has testified. Moreno, on the other hand, believes that the increased focus of the Green New Deal has shifted the Democratic Party into serious, unscientific, and nutty territory. As a result, he continued, the greatest danger we face right now with the Green New Deal is very simply the Republican Party coming up with the Green New Deal light. We need to oppose it and oppose it firmly. We don't need to come up with a light version of the plan. What does that mean? And this is, Moreno kind of brings out something that I've always talked about too. It's like Rick Perry, who's in charge of energy sector. And when you talk about the left and they talk about man-made climate change, the right's answer, before Donald Trump anyway, was Rick Perry. And it was always, well, it's human-based, but it's not as bad as we think it is. That is what Moreno is saying right here. That is the light version of global warming, what Rick Perry would say. And what Mark is trying to relay here is that he doesn't want the Republicans saying, all right, tell you what, let's do some of what you said, but we got to have this kind of regulation instead of that. The point of this testifying is that man does not impact the climate. That these policies, this Green New Deal, is an economy killer, and it will kill Americans. And I'm not saying this to get the clickbait here or get people in the fear mode here. I'm saying this because it's just fact. You're taking away jobs. You're taking away people's livelihoods. Shutting down coal plants. You're going to have more cold deaths. Look, it's statistically known there are more deaths due to cold weather than there is hot weather. If we're having blackouts on a regular basis, people are freezing to death in the cold because of all this Green New Deal jargon, they're going to have to, this is just going to be a mess. It's going to be too late because too many people are going to suffer from this, poverty-wise and life or death. And I'm glad, I'm thankful that guys like Morano here are testifying. And this is a two-part video, by the way, folks. The Green New Pipe Dream, that's what he's calling it. The Green New Deal Pipe Dream. 2 parts. And they're both over an hour and a half long. And if you guys have the time, I know it's hard to catch us for an hour straight, but this is some good stuff. I've only watched a little bit, but this happened on February 27th, 2019 at the Longworth House office building. Also, there's a link here of the submitted written testimony of Mark Moreno. If you don't want to watch the video, you can read the transcripts for yourself. But this is important work here that Mark is doing, guys. And I hope this is getting more attention than it should, because here is a very smart, reputable man who is trying to urge Republicans, please do not offer a compromise deal to this, because they've got it wrong in the first place. This whole deal, if it was right in any way, I think most people would come out and say it. Like, all right, look, they've got certain points right. But nobody's saying that. And because the people that know better know that we are not playing the role on the climate like the left is telling us, like these liberals are telling us, these crazy AGWs. And I can say that because this deal represents every bit of crazy that's out there. Global warming, a fear campaign by scientists hooked on government grants. I've been saying this too. This is Greenpeace founder Patrick Moore. He's been in the news lately. Conservatives have long argued that AGW is a politically motivated distortion of climate science. That's because it is. Now that an argument is being bolstered by an unexpected source, the co-founder of the leading environmental organization, Greenpeace, Patrick Moore, who is also former president of Greenpeace Canada, appeared on Sirius XM's Breitbart News Tonight for an interview with Rebecca Mansour and Joe Pollock. And here is the link if you guys want to go into and listen to this interview here. Very short piece. Actually, the bit below here in the sound bar, that is the actual interview. It's 25 minutes long. It's on SoundCloud. But I wanted to bring it up because he was in the news not too long ago, and I misread an article seeing that Trump was actually supporting Patrick when he tweeted out that climate change is the biggest hoax out there. So this article is basically a follow-up to what we saw President Trump repeating in his retweet about Moore being right, about climate change being a hoax and a big fraud. But fear has been used throughout all history to gain control of people's minds and wallets and all else, and the climate catastrophe is strictly a fear campaign, he said, adding that proponents of AGW, the view that human activity rather than natural phenomena is primarily responsible for Earth's changing climate. It is also fueled by the guilt that you're killing your children because you're driving them in your SUV and emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Well, do you know what I tell the person that tells me that? Who's driving the SUV on Venus? Who's driving the SUV on Jupiter? Have you guys seen pictures of Jupiter lately in their atmosphere? How amazingly gorgeous it is, but some colors and some things that I don't think I've ever seen from Jupiter. Has anybody asked who's driving the SUV on Uranus or Neptune? How about Mercury? And you're probably, well, Jake, why are you asking that question for? What the hell does that have to do with this topic? Because the planets that I just mentioned and the rest of the solar system have all experienced atmospheric climate change on their planets over the past several years. And it's being documented as well as Earth. So that's a coincidence that man is causing climate change at the same time the entire solar system is going through changes as well. Wow. Amazing coincidence, huh? No. Again, this goes back to the sun is the driver of the climate. Of course it is. Look, have you seen how big this thing is? Of course it controls everything. It's the creator of life. There's no other word for it. Should have been called life. Like, hey, everybody, look into the sky. The life is out. Because that's what it does. It gives life all the way around to everything and anything. I'll leave the link to this article here on the page, of course. But I wanted to bring it up kind of backing up what President Trump in support. And it seems like that Mr. Moore is getting a little more attention. And also, I just want to make this clear that Greenpeace has done an excellent job of erasing Moore from any kind of record or anything about him on their website. So they've scrubbed very well, by the way, folks. But we already have that stuff archived, so no big deal. All right, so this one's good. We have a person here, Dana Nucitellini, I guess that's how you say her name. Climate deniers caters to old, white, conservative American men. Well, I'm not so sure about that. I'm 41 years old. I don't feel old. I'm older. But I didn't learn about the global cooling scare as this so-called article is stating. But this woman believes that once these old farts die, that we'll be able to get a handle on climate change and what we need to do about it, which is laughable. And which is why it's important that channels like us reach out to people at our age group and younger. You folks that are 45 and older, it's a breeze with you because you guys were in school for that whole global cooling scare situation. And that's what this article is talking about. And they're also saying the reason for the gap is because these people not only grew up during the global cooling scare with the whole Leonard Niño, documentary, which we also have aired on our channel as well. You know, that got people talking about global cooling. But here's where people are tired of the BS from the left and the right. They said it back then. 40 years later, we're talking about no more snow and no more glaciers on top of the poles. So these people that are skeptical of alarmism is because they've lived through this before, but last time it was about cooling. Now it's about warming. Now the majority of these people that are also tired of this alarmism is not only that, but they know they were taught in a time where it was more honest and it was known that climate change is natural. The sun is the driver of the climate. And I keep pounding that into our broadcast tonight, but it's the truth. It's the biggest key to everything on this planet is the sun. It's the biggest key to everything. Moving right along, again, you can watch the documentary here at, I believe this was What's Up With That? What was this? I apologize, folks. Yes, What's Up With That? Thanks again to Anthony Watson Company. Taking a look at wind turbine infrasound. Guys, this is more or less a video I want you guys to check out. Description. Industrial wind turbine infrasound is not the best weapon, but it is a weapon. This German video documents the harmful effects of infrasound produced by industrial-sized wind turbines. The dangers of infrasound have been known since the 1980s when the U.S. military heavily invested in infrasound below 20 hertz as a weapon. Now, I can tell you this. Mari has been telling me about this for a long time. And at first I just thought, okay, sounds like a conspiracy to me. You know, because I didn't hear it, I guess. But she has lived around long enough. She knows the sound. She knows what to listen for. So when I found this video and started watching it, it all started to make sense. What Mari's been telling me the whole time has been truth. And there is some very, very weird frequency stuff that's involved. Mari, would you like to elaborate? Because I know you do have a little more background on this than I do for sure.
Well, Buffalo has a lot. They have windmill farms all along Lake Erie. So I live not far from these farms. And I can tell you, even as far as away as I don't really remember the distance I was, but I got sick like when I moved closer to the windmills. And it took me 2 years to find out what the droning sound was. It was like it's everything is like sound and vibration. It's such a complex like discussion. There's so many different ways you can go about it, but wind turbines, for me at least, there's all kinds of frequencies, and people are already experiencing more and more EMF frequencies and all that, but it's like a sound and vibration thing. What really irked me about the wind turbines is just the droning. noise. It does drive you crazy. And do the research on wind turbines. Everything from the maintenance, they just rot. They're just falling apart. I've seen everything, just total waste of money. I've seen helicopters dump jet fuel on the actual windmill to de-ice. Not very green. And the amount of power
we're
output
talking about
it's just crazy that people are presenting this as a feasible option for, massive power consumption. It's sort of a joke. Yeah. I just don't get it.
Dumping jet fuel.
There's so many negatives compared to the positives.
Dumping jet fuel on anything.
And they don't talk about the energy consumption on actually generating, creating the parts and stuff. What waste is just creating the actual turbines themselves. It's crazy. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's all right. But dumping jet fuel into the ground, penetrating our soil, not a good idea for the environment. We care about the planet. Just because we don't believe that coal is the problem or CO2 is the problem doesn't mean we don't care about the environment of our planet. I didn't know about the jet fuel de-icing. That's pretty sad, actually. So we've embedded the video into our channel. You guys can take a look at it. And here, we'll watch a little bit from CNN. They talked to our favorite liar. We covered him a little bit earlier this week on our Facebook page. Let's take a listen and hear what he has to say for himself, guys.
Climate change, former Vice President Al Gore. He is hosting Climate Reality Leadership Core training in Atlanta today. Mr. Vice President, a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for focusing on this, Brooke, and for having me on.
You got it. We'll dive right into it in just a second, but I'd be remiss not to get your reaction to the terror attacks in New Zealand. This white supremacist is accused in his anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim manifesto.
It was jarring here in Atlanta where we had last night, just before this news, getting worse. So the old strategy of trying to fool people into disbelieving the evidence in front of their own eyes is failing. And we're crossing a tipping point now, Brooke. We're seeing many Republicans change their positions and join the growing bipartisan consensus. And the debate's not about the science. That debate's long since over.
Oh, yeah. That's what I meant to get to, guys. I apologize for the other stuff. Not that I don't want to report on the New Zealand thing, but that's for a different time. That science has already been settled. It's already been, that's it. It's over. I mean, this guy can't even look straight into the camera. Every time he tells a lie, he looks down. And I'll show you the first lie where he looks down afterwards.
Events have quadrupled in recent years. Here in the U.S. alone, in less than 9 years, we've had 17 once-in-a-thousand-year events. And they keep on coming. And they keep.
Okay, so we talked about this before. When a 1-in-a-thousand-year event happens in one spot, and they happen in other spots too of the world, don't you think it's a little weird that these 1-in-a-thousand-year events happen around the same time? Kind of like what would happen if things were on a cycle. They don't look at the data like that. They cherry pick it into something that's not. Oh, we've seen so many 1-in-a-thousand-year storms in what time, and that's just, oh my God, that just means climate change. But next week, it's supposed to be normal weather with sunny skies and, whatever.
Keep on getting worse. So,
looking down after he says keep on getting worse, he knows he's lying for his reasons anyway.
The old strategy of trying to fool people into disbelieving the evidence in front of their own eyes is failing. And
looks down again after he says is failing. There's two lies.
We're crossing a tipping point now, Brooke. We're seeing many Republicans.
Okay, he's looking down while he says this lie, that many Republicans are changing their stance. That's another lie.
Change their positions and join the growing bipartisan consensus. And
looking down right after he talks about consensus, because he knows there is no consensus, not in science.
The debate's not about the science. That debate's long since over.
Looking down again, right after another lie. What, are we at 6 now? 6 lies in 60 seconds.
The debate now is about the best ways to move as fast as we can to solve this crisis.
But what about the leader of all Republicans, the president himself? I mean, if inaction...
The leader of all Republicans, the president himself,
continues for the next 2, maybe 6 years under a Trump White House, what concerns you? What is the one immediate consequence on climate?
Well, actually, in what some might call a perverse way, I think the fact that Donald J. Trump has become the global face of climate denial is actually encouraging.
He looked down after that one too. So there's lie number 7.
A lot more people to join the cause of helping bring about the solutions more rapidly.
Looking down once again, nobody wants to go along with the Green New Deal. He's lying to himself here.
He cannot withdraw from the Paris Agreement, by the way, legally.
I believe he did, and he will. When they go to re-sign this, it's when we don't sign it that takes us out of it. So, yeah.
First date we could is the day after the next presidential election. So the fate of this issue is not in his hands. It's in our hands. And a large and growing bipartisan majority in this country is now saying definitively to politicians and office holders, it's time to act, and the sooner the better, the bolder the better.
I know that you have praised the Green New Deal and how it started a dialogue, but which part, Mr. Vice President, would, in looking at it, do you believe needs to be fixed or maybe unrealistic at this point?
Well, I think it's an aspirational goal that makes it possible for large majorities to come together in a common demand that the U.S. change its approach. I'll tell you what it reminds me of, Brooke, and years ago, when I was working on the issue of nuclear arms control, there was a movement called...
All right, so I'm getting bored, but basically, I'll leave the video here for you guys to watch. If it's coming off of CNN, it's pretty much fake news anyway. And the way the lady just described the President of the United States of America, the leader of all Republicans, has everyone denying. So... But this was for Comedy Hour, folks. I wanted to show you guys a little bit of just proof. The body language of Al Gore. I think I counted around 8 to 11 lies in the 3-minute clip that I just showed you guys. And I'm sure if we watched the rest of it, we would probably see another 8 to a dozen more lies that he's telling, and he knows he's lying. That's why he keeps looking down and away. He knows he's lying to the American public. And it's just like we talked about up here earlier. Patrick Moore, global warming fear campaign by scientists and wannabe politicians hooked on government grants, while jet setting to all these trainings and these seminars and living in mansions that cost more than some people's salary in 3 months as far as electricity bills per month. All right, guys, stay tuned. We'll be right back with the weather part of our show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right, we're back here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Finally, we're going to get into a little bit of weather news. Not much of a weather maker as we go into our GFS forecast here. But it does state here that a track and strength of fast-developing storm near the coast will determine the extent of snow, rain, and damaging winds in the northeastern United States prior to the end of this week. The latest indications are that a storm will quickly form near the coast of Virginia, North Carolina on Thursday, one day after the arrival of spring, ironically, at a point in time that historically has seen significant snowstorms and nor'easters. Yes, let's point that out, that it is normal to see nor'easters in March. Not normal to see 5 like we did last year. So with that being said, we are following a potential snowstorm that could form in the farther northern part of the nor'easter or the northeast. Now, it looks to me right now that we're going to see rain mainly for Pennsylvania, D.C., Jersey, Philly, New York City, parts of Albany, Syracuse. This is going to be all rain. But as this cold air does filter through into Friday, we see some colder air and snow showers begin to fall. Now, the heaviest snow is going to be up in the northern part near Maine, and a mix of precipitation with rain in the coastal areas. And a lot of that shower activity in Pennsylvania will turn into light snow showers from rain. But a foot of listen to this. A foot of snow may fall over the Adirondacks and the Green White Mountains with several inches at lower elevations from later Thursday into Friday. Somewhere from Pennsylvania to Connecticut and eastern New York State, the air will become cold enough to allow snow and or rain in a snow mix. This is Thursday into late night Friday. Overnight, look at this. We're looking at a foot in most areas in upstate New York. But what are the high temperatures going to be? Well, let's take a look. Also, a wind alert for Friday. Maximum gust up to 60 miles per hour. For the most part, we're looking at 30 to 40 miles. That's nothing too unusual. Saturday, winds get a little bit heavier towards the coastal cities as this storm does pick up a little speed. And even parts of upstate New York and the Adirondacks, the Lake George area, we'll see. Albany, capital region, will definitely see some increasing winds. Gusts up to 60 miles an hour will be possible on Saturday as we go into Sunday before things wind down. And let's go ahead and take a look at, by the way, here are the last two solar updates we've done. Monday on top, this morning's on the bottom. Let's go ahead and take a look at tropical tidbits. Here we have our storm system that we were talking about forming here late Thursday. And there's that low right there around Virginia into Philly, combining with another system that's sweeping across the Midwest into the Northeast. And a reminder, this is all rain into the Northeast at this point into Friday night. And even GFS is showing nothing but rain and some heavy snow towards Maine, but nothing too dramatic overnight. Some light snow showers to form across western New York and western Pennsylvania. I believe those are more westerly winds responsible, but this system here does not show any kind of impact in the inner part of the Northeast, mainly southern Maine and parts of the Northeast will see snow in the heavier amounts, but mainly this will be a rain event this weekend for the Northeast. More rain across areas that really don't need it at this time, but it's not that bad. The Ohio Valley, you haven't seen a whole lot. Pennsylvania, these are light showers, maybe an inch of rain. But on the coastal part of this, New Jersey, New York City could see a half inch or more of rain on Friday, March 22nd. And this storm will wind out of here. The worst of it will be far away from land. And then we get another low pressure system trying to get its act together across the United States. Notice how it travels up to the northern plains by Sunday, March 24th. More snow across Montana, North Dakota, and upper parts of Minnesota. Again, these are the areas that we're talking about earlier of having common rolling blackouts from lack of coal. Imagine getting a late spring or early spring storm like this, and the power goes out on top of the storm. And this could just be weak infrastructure why the power goes out, just because of the minor storage that we do have for solar and wind. But looking at the storm system going into early next week, this is mainly rain across the lower 48, snow above the Great Lakes. And then as we get into, look at this, late Tuesday, we look at some heavy snow accumulations across the southeast Ohio, eastern parts or western parts of Pennsylvania, light snow the rest of the Northeast, but the heaviest is in the mid-Atlantic states and the southeast, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina. You guys will see rain showers as well as our forecast continues to get a little bit wetter across the south in the mid. But man, look at this storm, this trough of cold air that comes in at the end of the month. That's pretty strong stuff right there, folks. Those ISO bars are pretty close together, and that indicates a lot of wind as well. As we move through March 28th towards the end of the month, we see a pretty big, nasty, low-pressure system once again cranking up across the United States, and this thing is big, bringing snow across the northern plains, into Nebraska, into Iowa, before finally getting its act together by the end of March. This is a slow-moving storm, and the trough will pick this up and put it up into Canada, leaving mainly a rain event, but more snow in the northwest and the southwest of the United States and another big low pressure system going into April. Look at this thing. Wow. So the last 3 storm systems I just showed you increased in size each time, bringing snow to the northern plains. Old man winter is not letting go for some parts of the United States. And that being said, we've also seen indications that we are going to experience a cooler summer across parts of Texas, New Mexico, Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming. You could be looking at cooler temperatures than average. That's what weather.com is saying right now. And the rest of the country, realistically, is slightly above average temperatures. So in other words, expect an average summer season. We'll see some hot waves. I'm sure of it. But nothing too extraordinary is expected from weather.com. So it's rare to see a mainstream media outlet admitting that where we're supposed to be warming, we're going to be looking at summer conditions that are just going to be plain right average. Nothing more, nothing less. Take a look at this, guys. El Niño 3-4 region. Can you believe this? I mean, to me, it looks like this El Niño is not happening. When you look at this graph, and I've looked at this several times. TSM Solar Observations has pointed this out several times. The maps and the graphs don't always match. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're cooking it up right here, folks, because the last time I remember these values right here. All right, look at that. And then let's go up to the temperature map. Now, what's odd to me is that when we see these temperatures up here like this, almost non-existent, we usually see temperatures right around here or lower in the past. So something's not adding up here. That overall map is showing us that top half of the region is cooling. And right now, this 25, 25, 24, 24, these all should be 28s at the least. We're 3 to 4 degrees Celsius off in this region. And yet we're supposed to believe that El Niño is entering its stronger part of the phase right now. I don't know. We'll continue to watch this, guys. I haven't been convinced all year. I accepted the answer because I did see the temperatures over here. I'm sorry about that. Let's try this again. When these temperatures what the hey? When we saw these temperatures peaking up here and staying around here, we thought, okay, as long as it does this, and right now we still have a few months to watch this, as long as it's doing this fluctuation right here, that adds up to what an El Niño would normally, a weak one as well, would do in its second phase of its criteria. But just going to be curious to see how much drop we continue to see. Will it jump back up into here? Will it stay level right here for the next several weeks? We'll continue to monitor, but like we've been saying all year long, and people around us who agree as well, the worst case scenario, this is a Modaki El Niño, guys. This isn't even a moderate El Niño. I still say it's going to be weak, and right now, from the looks of it, it's continuing to weaken. The temperatures are much cooler in regions that, I'll have to do some research into what kind of volcanic activity we've had this year. Hasn't been enough for that part of the world to kind of tame the temperatures of the oceans down just a little bit. I don't know, a whole another can of worms we can get into at another show, though, as well. And as far as that goes, I really didn't have much more to share with you guys tonight. I did want to see one other thing. There's our snow and ice coverage. We're starting to see that snow line recede as usual. It is getting close to spring. We're just a few days, 2 days away from it, actually. I thought it was right. Here it is. And, of course, let's see where we finally peaked out this year on the snow. Here we go. We're finally starting to see that snow mass starting to head south just a little bit. But what an exciting year. How far past the average we went this year. And people were telling us that snow is going to be a thing of the past and look at the total snow mass for the northern hemisphere in the peak of our winter, all the way into almost to mid-April, or mid-March, I should say, before we finally started seeing things kind of die down. And with that being said, Mari, did you want to add anything tonight to our broadcast? Say hello to anybody in our chat tonight? All the lovely faces out there.
Absolutely. We have lots of people watching. So many different interesting conversations in the chat, Jake. There is a lot of people are like, what should I grow? And the Todd asks, what type of food do I need to grow? And we have some excellent people in the chat. Carlton's our fun guy, our GSM
He is
fun
a
guy.
fun guy, isn't he?
He is talking about what he's doing. I mean, these guys, extraordinary, like awesome. So many amazing things Carlton's doing. We got to get him on for an interview.
Absolutely.
It's so, like, you just can't put it all in the chat or discuss it in a few minutes. But he has a 16,000 square foot warehouse, and he grows mushrooms, and he's encouraging people to do indoor ecosystems, and he's talking about his hemp grow up that he has going on, and just all the pros and cons, different methods, very interesting stuff. Lady T Survival is telling people to get the heirloom seeds so they can save the seeds for the following year's planting. Just a lot of interesting things. Eric Williams says, why doesn't the conservative voices on TV tell people what's really going on like you guys explain? And that's we're not MSN. We're objective on both sides. We see the wrong on both sides.
Well, it's deeper than that. Mainstream media has more at stake to lose. In other words, it's kind of like when the mob doesn't like they don't like something they see, they go and take care of the problem and take you out. And just like climatologists and meteorologists all over the world who seem to favor global cooling, but they don't come out and admit to it because they know that their reputation right now is against the grain as far as what the rest of the world believes. So I really believe that there will be a time of disclosure. Trump is starting that right now with his panel of experts, of scientists that are going to debate the effects of man-made climate. But that's an excellent question. And I was thinking that the other night watching Patrick Moore on Fox News. Why don't they just come out and tell everybody that this is all a hoax? But I think there's a time and a place for this, and people are still concerned of their reputation, their personal lives, and how they are going to get by if they try to expose this massive hoax that has billions of dollars in grant money riding on it every year. So I think it's a little delicate thing right now. People are walking on eggshells. They don't want to get taken out by the deep state or the mainstream media and ruin their reputations either.
And then I just said in the chat, get your kids involved with gardening. It's such an important skill set to have. Carlton's talking about the oyster mushrooms. I know you're such a mushroom fan.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you're fond of fun guys, so, you know, hey, yeah, whatever. But anyway, oyster mushrooms were grown in wartime Germany when all the supplies were cut and they were starving all across the country. And if you look, I believe I have pictures of his mushroom stuff. He actually posted a very large mushroom that was the size of like a loaf of bread the other day on Facebook. I got to share that.
They were also in
a minimum page.
They were in a news article too, not too long ago, where they were getting a lot of credit for growing these rather large mushrooms at rather large quantities. And somebody made a comment, "Oh, I've done that before," and then I think Carlton replied, "Oh, 7.5 feet long, that before." So I mean, they are doing some big things up there, that's for sure.
And then, again, in closing, a brilliant comment of the evening from E.T. Man, Bear, Pig is super cereal.
He is so cereal, guys, and nobody wants to take him cereal.
Oh, boy. So, love you guys in the chat. It's always a pleasure. So, thank you for joining us, and just make sure you share this video, because people are saying they're not getting notifications and all that. We're doing the best we can to get the word out. And don't be surprised to see this broadcast broken up into 3 sections and uploaded right back up.
Yep, the next time we do a broadcast like this, we won't detail when we're going to do segment switches, but we kind of wanted to make everybody aware of the new format change. We're going to break it down like that, so when you see those little in-between commercials from Grand Solar Minimum, just know that we're preparing for the next segment of the live broadcast. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Thank you for tuning in to our Tuesday night show. We'll be back Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, look out for our next solar update that will be out sometime early afternoon tomorrow, Wednesday, March 20th. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. Take care out there, and we'll talk soon.